So I've been doing Dr. Joe's work for almost 6 years now, but 3 years ago, I wasn't seeing results. Like, don't get me wrong, there were results, but they were inconsistent. Like brief moments of magic, followed by slipping right back into my old patterns. But here's the thing: for me, the missing piece wasn't in the meditation itself. It wasn't about finding a better technique or meditating longer, but it was about something that I was completely overlooking. Something so simple. And what I discovered is that what happens in the 15 minutes after meditation or the rest of the day is just as important as the meditation itself. But we'll stick to the 15 minutes because that's kind of like the foundation. Because once I understood this, my results went from fleeting to profound, like almost overnight. And for about 4 years, I'd been doing these powerful meditations. And then I would immediately, check my phone, jump back into emails, get ready to start rushing to start my day. I was basically building a beautiful sandcastle and then immediately letting the wave wash it away. And it sounds obvious now, but I had never thought about what happens in those first 10 to 15 minutes after meditation. That is like being a chef who spends so many hours preparing an amazing meal, only to just dump it into the trash without even tasting it. Like you just completely wasted all that effort. And so that's what I was doing, day after day. And so if you've been practicing Dr. Joe's work or meditating for a while and feel like something's missing, like you can access those elevated states, but maybe you can't seem to maintain them, I get it. I was there. You understand all the concepts intellectually, like you're doing the meditation diligently, but something feels somewhat disconnected between your practice and your everyday life. And so, over the past 5 years, I've immersed myself deeply into this work. I've spent thousands of hours in meditation itself, worked with hundreds of clients who were actually stuck in the same integration gap that I was also. And so, this isn't just theory, but it's what actually finally broke me through after years of frustration as well. So, I'm excited for this video, so grab some notes, take some notes down, and because I'm going to show you the exact post-meditation practice that transformed my results from inconsistent to crazy profound, like almost immediately. Because this isn't about adding more to your meditation or spending more time in meditation, but it's about understanding the critical transition period that makes all your meditation work, actually. Okay? So, the first thing is called what I call the integration gap. And it's that critical period right after meditation when most of us completely, drop the ball. That is the equivalent of someone like really having a great gym session and then eating donuts afterwards. Like, okay, man, all that work is just instantly undone. So my typical morning is I would do this beautiful, deep meditation, reach those elevated states, feel connected to everything, experience genuine gratitude and joy, and then the second the meditation finished, boom, where's my phone? Okay, let me check my emails, let me check Instagram, and I would immediately get sucked into whatever was waiting for me on the other side of that screen. Okay? That is like, and it felt like I had a split personality. Like in the meditation me was like, okay, I'm so peaceful, I'm so elevated, all right? But then when I opened my eyes, I would immediately go back to stress, reactivity. Let me see that negative content, you know what I mean? It's not even the good ones that we try to look for. We look for the negative content. And so, I remember there was this one morning in particular, I had this amazing meditation. One of those rare ones where you feel like you've just touched something profound, you've connected to something profound, and you're just filled. You just are filled. I open my eyes, and I'm feeling amazing. And within literally 30 seconds, check my phone, open my emails, and then I saw something that's triggering. And I was just like that, back into my old self, back into my old patterns, stressed out, anxious, completely identified, immersed in that drama in that email. So by lunchtime, that beautiful meditation I experienced just felt like a distant memory. Like something that just had happened to someone else. And then I was just wondering, I'm like, man, why can't I hold these states? Why do they disappear so quickly? Like, what am I missing? Which brings me to the second mistake that I was making. And it was that I was misunderstanding the true purpose of meditation. You see, I've been treating meditation as an isolated event, okay? For me, meditation was an isolated event. Something that I do for an hour in the morning, and then I would separate it for the rest of the day. Like, okay, meditation, done. Okay, now let's get on with real life. But that's literally missing the point of meditation. Meditation isn't about what happens when our eyes are closed. No. But it's training for what happens when our eyes are open. Meditation is preparation for life, not an escape from it. Well, it can be, to ease up on life a little bit with 3D reality. However, I was treating my meditation as like a vacation from my regular life instead of practicing to transform my regular life. And so no wonder the benefits weren't sticking. So what's really happening in those, critical moments after meditation, the 10 to 15 minutes? And why is that transition period so important? And what exactly should you be doing during this time to preserve all the benefits of your practice? Well, there's some neuroscience behind this. Because I discovered the critical practice, post meditation practice that I have been completely overlooking. Right? To me, it was just like meditation. This is it. There was one time I was at the gym and I was listening to one of Dr. Joe's Q&As, I think on Dr. Joe Live, and he mentioned something about what happens after meditation, and it was like this guy was talking to me. You know what I mean? I had to pause the recording, and I had to rewind it. I'm like, wait, what did you say? Okay, let me listen intently. And so he was talking about this important integration phase that happens after you finish meditating. How the way you transition back into your day is actually critical, important for cementing those neurological hardwares that you just created in your brain and body. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is the missing piece of the puzzle. And so I realized I had been doing all the heavy lifting in the meditation, and then I've just been throwing away the results every single day. Okay? And so the very next morning, I tried something different. After meditation, instead of, grabbing my phone, I just sat there. So obviously the meditations are on my phone, so I just threw my phone away, and I just closed my eyes, and for 15 minutes, I journaled a little bit, and then I consciously held onto that elevated state while slowly transitioning back into my day. And let me tell you, such a simple change. Okay, what happened to me surprised me. So listen. So before I get into that, but this principle is actually backed by neuroscience. Because when we meditate, we are creating new neural pathways in our body, literally rewiring our nervous system to operate from a more elevated state, okay? But these new pathways are fragile at first, okay? They are new roads. They need time to solidify, to strengthen. However, if we immediately jump back into old patterns, check our phone right away, our triggers, we are essentially erasing the new pathways before they even have a chance to establish themselves. And so this was the difference between temporary states and enduring actual traits, okay? A state is something you experience momentarily. A trait is something that becomes part of your character. And so the integration periods is what helps transform those elevated states into characteristic traits, enduring traits, okay? That is like the difference between writing something in the sand versus carving it in stone. So without the proper integration, our meditation experiences are just beautiful patterns in the sand, washed away by the first wave of everyday life, aka our phone. And I'm using that as an example because I know we can all relate to it. But that leads me to my next insight, which is understanding how implementing this single step preserved the benefits of my meditation. Because think of it like this. Meditation is like charging your phone, right? We plug it in, you fill it up with, we are filled up with energy. However, if you immediately start running all your apps in full brightness and full sound, well, that charge is going to drain very quickly. The integration period is like putting your phone in low power mode for a while, so the charge lasts much longer. So what does this look like in real life? Well, for me, it looked like creating a deliberate transition period between my meditation practice and the rest of my day. So instead of trying to shift from meditation to fully engaging in the world, I would create a gentle gap between these two states, okay? Now, let me tell you that this is not about adding more time to your meditation, but it's actually just about being strategic with how you use the time immediately after. And so it is about cultivating and protecting that frequency that you've just cultivated, because that it's fragile, it's susceptible to being overridden by old programs. And so when I started implementing this integration period, it felt a little bit silly in the beginning. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do after meditation? Just sit there staring at the wall? And I did. But I had to do that for a month, right? And so our old self is not used to that. Like, come on, dude, stop being boring. And so what my post-meditation ritual was after finishing meditation, I would set not a set a timer, but I would like, during that time, it would just be about 10 to 15 minutes journaling my experience, noticing any insights, anything that came up. And then I would consciously remind myself on how I wanted to show up in the day and set my intention to maintain this elevated state throughout the day. And let me tell you, the first week was awkward as fuck. I was impatient. I was bored. I was like, dude, what the fuck? You're wasting your time. My mind was like, come on, you've got better things to do. But I know I had to stick with it. And by the second week, then something started shifting. I started noticing that the transition wasn't as jarring, and my elevated state from my meditation was extending further into my day. I wasn't immediately getting stuck into stress, reaction, whenever challenges arose. And so by the end of the month, the difference was crazy. Like the elevated state wasn't just lasting longer, but it was becoming my new baseline. The person I was in meditation and the person I was in daily life, they were starting to merge. But then this raises another question, which is what exactly happens during this integration period? Like, how do you implement it physically? Especially if you have a busy schedule, right? If you're a business owner, if you have kids, if you have a job. What specific benefits can you actually expect? Well, there was one insight, which was how this one change helped me maintain elevated state throughout the day. So after I put it in my integration practices and I started feeling different, I wasn't immediately getting sucked back into my old self or emotional patterns, and that elevated state stayed with me for longer periods than usual. And so by the end of the week, I would notice that I wasn't responding to stressful situations. I was responding to them completely different. Like, right, something would happen to me that would, normally trigger me, like a client canceling last minute, or getting unexpected traffic because there's roadwork or there was an accident. Like, the old self would react immediately. However, now there's for me, after putting this integration practice, there is a stimulus and a holding period before I react. And so all of these automatic patterns suddenly had kind of like a manual override switch. And so I was experiencing these elevated states. Whatever I was experiencing during meditation was now being implemented in the midst of challenges. And so the fourth key insight was the connection between proper integration and the synchronicities that began appearing in my life because I was handling challenges in a much more coherent state. And I'm gonna tell you that by the end of the month of practicing this simple integration step, my God, the synchronicities started appearing in ways that they talk about in workshops, okay? Like, suddenly the universe got the memo and I was actually available for these connections. And it makes perfect sense when you think about it, because when we're constantly bouncing between elevated states and survival states and created states, we are sending mixed signals to the field. It's like we're trying to tune a radio while constantly changing the frequency. Like, come on, you want to listen to rock or rap? Pick one. However, when you maintain a constant elevated state through proper integration, oh my God, you are holding a clear signal, a clear frequency. And let me tell you, that's when the synchronicities flood in. And there was this funny moment about 2 months into my new practice. I was thinking about something I wanted to happen in my business, because I wanted to create a workshop combining Dr. Joe's work with some other modalities that I'd studied as well. And so, oh man, that same day, I get a text from someone that I hadn't spoken to in about a couple of months. And they were asking if I'd be interested in collaborating on, guess what? Exactly the type of workshop that I'd been envisioning. Now, in the past, I might have thought well, okay, this is a weird coincidence. And maybe even missed the opportunity because, look, I wasn't really tuned in. However, because I maintained this elevated state throughout the proper integration period, I recognized that this was a synchronicity. And so I called my friend back, and then I was like, okay, what? Listen, don't say anything, but you're not going to believe this. I was just literally thinking about this exact workshop concept this morning. And she said, well, that's weird, because I woke up today and had this really strong feeling that I needed to text you about this idea. And then, because she lives in the Gold Coast and I live in Sydney, and I was like, basically it was like we were both receiving from the same field, and we were tuned into the same frequency. And let me tell you that these types of synchronicities started happening so regularly that it feels like magic. Like, even now, I put an intention out there that my business builds itself and literally someone came into my life and was doing all the things, let's just say, doing all the things that I don't want to do. And that brings us to the most profound aspect of this work. And it's the shift from seeing meditation as an isolated practice to experiencing it as a conscious state of being. What happens when meditation stops being something you do and starts becoming something that you are? And how does this change your entire approach to your practice? Interesting questions, right? Because probably the most profound shift was the transformation that occurred when meditation became a conscious state rather than an isolated practice. Because I had been approaching meditation as something I do, a activity with a beginning and an end, okay? I meditate, then I stop meditating, and then I go throughout my day. You following? But through this integration practice, I began to experience meditation as a state of being that could continue throughout my day. The boundaries between meditation time and regular life, it blurred. It became one. It became one. It is like the difference between visiting a new country for a few hours versus actually living there. When you visit, you're just tourists, okay? You feel separate from the country. But when you live there, the country becomes home. And this is what happens in those elevated states. They stop being one-time destinations, exotic destinations that I visited occasionally, and started becoming the place I actually lived. And let me tell you, this is some game-changing shit. It brings us to the next point, and the insight is why this step is often neglected despite the importance of Dr. Joe's teachings as well. Because Dr. Joe talks about the integration phase a lot. Like in his books, lectures, when you go to retreats. Yeah, he emphasizes about it a lot. But it's easy to miss because we're so focused on the meditation techniques itself. And so it is the same as being so excited to learn to drive the car that we completely overlook the importance of how to park it properly. Okay, you know what I mean? Without being able to park, we risk damage to the vehicle. And so for me, this realization was both frustrating and liberating. Frustrating because I dismissed it as being something that is just there all along. But then liberating because it meant that I didn't need to learn some complex new technique. I just needed to properly implement what I already knew. So, how do you actually apply this into your life? Because I don't want to leave you empty-handed, you know what I mean? I don't want you to just be a consumer, I want you to be in the game. So write this step-by-step guide to my post-meditation practice. First, you gotta plan for it. Before you even start meditating, set an intention to include a 10 to 15 minute integration period afterward. So this means setting your alarm for 15 minutes earlier or scheduling your meditation earlier when you know you don't have to rush immediately into an activity, okay? Make this an honoring of yourself, not just something to tick off. Second, create a transition ritual. After your meditation, don't immediately just get up and start opening your eyes and start scrolling. Take a few deep breaths, like big deep breaths, to transition that meditative state into a more alert but more still present state. Third, journal. Write down any insights during meditation and emotions. What could you do better? While they're still fresh, because this helps cement them in your conscious awareness. Fourth, set intentions for your day. How do you want to show up? What qualities from your meditation do you want to carry with you forward? And then fifth, okay, this sounds weird, but you got to protect your frequency. Protect this new state, okay? We get taught how to, because when you protect this state, you have to cultivate. You just cultivated this beautiful frequency with yourself. So avoid checking emails, social media, anything that might trigger old stress or old patterns. Like, if possible, ease into your days with activities that support your elevated state. You just cultivated something. You just cultivated something beautiful in you. So protect it. And then sixth, this is the best one. Create reminders throughout your day. Set alarms in your phone. Put sticky notes with your symbols on your computer, whatever it is. Create any system that will remind you to check in with yourself, to reconnect to that elevated state. These brief check-ins help reinforce those neural pathways that you're building. Okay? Like I have post-it notes everywhere. And you have to remember that this isn't about adding a huge time commitment to your practice, but it's about being strategic with the time you already have. Like, start with 5 minutes. Like a 5-minute integration period is better than nothing at all. Because I promise you, when you integrate this practice into your daily routine, you will experience transformations so profound that, for me, meditation just stopped being this isolated thing in the morning, and it became a continuous thread woven throughout my entire day. And the benefits that I've been seeking for years: consistent emotional regulation, increased synchronicities, like just being so coherent throughout your day, improved relationships, greater creativity, I swear it's going to start showing up naturally. Not because I'm trying harder in my meditation, because I was finally bridging the gap between my practice and my life. And give yourself 3 months, and I promise you, your entire experience will shift. Challenges that would have thrown me into stress and reactivity before now feel manageable. Opportunities I would have missed before now seem obvious. Oh my God, that was a big one. Most importantly, you get a sense of connection and presence that you only experience during meditation becomes your new normal now during your awakened state. And it wasn't that life stopped presenting difficulties and challenges to me. No, it was that I stopped experiencing those difficulties from a place of separation, fear, worry, and I was approaching them in a state of calm, serene confidence, peace, coherence. Oh, it's life-changing. It's life-changing. But the main lesson I learned was that meditation isn't just what happens when our eyes are closed, but it's about how we carry that state into our life. And so don't disregard this integration period, because this integration period isn't an optional add-on, okay? But it's an essential component that determines whether your meditation will create lasting change or temporary states. Okay, yeah. Let this integration phase apply it into your life. Just see what happens, because I'm curious if you have been overlooking this important aspect in your life as well, right? Have you been overlooking and just focusing on the meditation itself? Like, what happens to you when you finish meditating? Do you immediately jump back into your day? Do you immediately put on that old self costume once again? And let me know in the comments. You have to remember though, the magic of meditation isn't just what happens during the practice, but it's in how you bridge that practice into your everyday life.